Howdy henchmen, henchwomen, and goons. Welcome to another Emulation Handheld Buyer's Guide. In this one, we'll be talking about operating systems. There are multiple different operating systems to choose from like Linux, Android, Windows, and SteamOS. But the most common will be Linux or Android. Lots of handhelds are now rolling out with Windows, and Steam Decks have SteamOS, but I wouldn't consider these to be emulation handhelds. Systems running Windows or Steam are more for modern gaming, but also happen to be very capable emulation handhelds. In addition to that, they're not exactly handhelds either, are they? They're so big that some could be called handshelds. Please clap. In short, this video is about Android and Linux because it's the most common for retro emulation handhelds, and not talking about Windows because I don't wanna. Linux. The majority of handhelds below the $80 price point are Linux-based, like Anbernic's XX line, and some go past that $80 price point like the RGDS, which now supports a Linux build. The main difference between a Linux and an Android handheld is the simplicity. A Linux handheld's operating system or custom firmware is usually purpose-built specifically as a gaming hub. Positives. Easy to use, and often intuitive. You usually just click games, then the system you want to play, then the game, and it launches you right into it. Very easy to install custom firmware on these. These are like alternative operating systems, like my favorite, MuOS. It's gotten to the point that I just won't even, bother using or testing stock OS on a handheld. I'll just jump straight into MuOS for a Linux handheld. No setup, usually comes pre-set up unless you want a CFW, in which case you have to install the CFW, which involves flashing it to an SD card, and even then, that's not really that hard. It's a little scary, but it's not that hard. Easy to learn, you really only need to know how to transfer files via drag and drop on your PC, and best of all, they're usually cheap. Negatives. Quality depends on the maker. In the earlier days, Anbernic's stock OS for XX devices was pretty terrible. It has gotten better though. Bad sleep functionality. When you sleep a Linux handheld, it's not as efficient as Android, meaning it'll consume more battery. You can use deep sleep functions where it'll make a save state or resume from it when you wake the device. But if you're for some reason unable to use save states, like you're playing on hardcore mode on retro achievements like me, or you're a retro purist, you won't be able to use save states. So deep sleep is a functionality unavailable to you. So you may want an Android device in that case. Usually Linux is found on weaker devices. You won't find it on your PS2 capable handhelds. Less functionality. Android is going to be able to do much more. Pretty much anything that your phone does. Basically, no Android apps, so no Roblox or YouTube. Overall, Linux's strong suit is being good for beginners, people who mostly want PS1 or earlier and are fine missing out on N64 and Dreamcast, and the better options for gifting. It's the easiest to learn, just drag and drop games to the right folder, and the rest of it is usually pre-set up. If you're making a gift system for someone like a kid or someone who isn't as tech literate as you, this is a great option. They won't know that there's better options out there, so they won't mind it lacking some of Android's more useful features. Android. You can find Android emulation handhelds in all budgets. I've reviewed the XU20V32, which is just $43, and there are options all the way up to the thousands, which I have not touched because that's too much. Thanks to Game Native and GameHub, Android handhelds have become pretty good at playing modern games if they have enough RAM. But for those playing just retro games, the most common Android handhelds come from $100 to $300. Just remember to check out reviews for each handheld as specs can vary greatly by price point. Positives. Android can do anything a phone can do, except for make calls or use a SIM. Usually they don't get a SIM because it requires a license or some sort of approval, which means delaying releases even further. So you're gonna have to use your mobile hotspot if you want to use Wi-Fi outside of a place with free Wi-Fi. Android handhelds are powerful. They can run anything from N64 and Dreamcast all the way up to modern gaming and Android gaming depending on which ones you get. Magic X does offer some weaker Android options like the XU20V32. Keep in mind when I say power, I usually mean above $100. Gamma OS is available on multiple Android handhelds. It's a CFW that unlocks higher performance from your handheld. Android is Android. Regardless of who makes your handheld, you're getting the same Android as long as the version number is the same. The big exception being Magic X, who sometimes uses a lighter Android build called Aurora. Android apps. Don't like the front end that comes with your handheld? Download Daiji Show instead. And if for some reason your Android handheld can't download stuff from the Play Store, you can always sideload it. Faster charging, longer battery, and better sleep functionality. Even on my smaller RG Rotate, the battery barely goes down overnight, and it only has a 6-hour battery life. Negatives. distraction machines. If you're easily distracted, never put your socials on one of these Android handhelds. Total pain to set up for first timers. There's so much you have to download. You have to manually set up RetroArch or individual emulators, and if you want a front end, you have to set that up too. I only use a front end for my RetroArch games, which is kind of silly because it's using a front end to manage your front end. You're going to want to follow a tutorial video for your first device, but if you needed your kid to teach you how to use your phone, then you might need them to set up your handheld too. Expensive. While I do have some of the cheaper Android options available, like the Pocket Air Mini 3GB RAM model, the Shu 20 V32, and the RG Rotate, they're not the best. The Pocket Air Mini was $120 and has ghosting, and my shell has been cracking spontaneously. I'm not the only one experiencing this either. It's rare, but it happens. The XU 20 V32 is basically just as good as Ambernex XX devices. While I liked it, it's not really representative of Android handhelds as it can't run most apps. I would still highly recommend it to anyone who wants Android sleep functionality on a similarly powered system to a Linux handheld. The Rotate is great, it's my favorite, but it lacks sticks. Still love it, but it's not really representative of Android handhelds. It has this power that I can't use because it doesn't have analog sticks. If you want a good Android handheld, they start at like $150 for the RP4, $200 for the RP5, and $250 for the RP6. Bigger handhelds. If you want something for your pocket, 90% of Android handhelds will be way too big. Overall, Android is for the person who wants to play Dreamcast and beyond. It's for the power user or someone who wants a powerful home device. I'd recommend most people start here on Android actually. Sure, it's harder to set up, but once you do get over that hurdle, you are way less likely to feel the need to upgrade later. It'll do everything you want, plus more. It's better in every way that you care about. But if you really think you won't play anything higher than 2D pixel games, then the Linux handheld is perfectly fine. I'd still recommend something like the Retroid Pocket Classic or the RG Rotate plastic model instead, although the Pocket Classic is getting harder to recommend since they're out of the $100 models. And that's it. The choice really comes down to how you play. If you use retro achievements on hardcore, get an Android handheld. Being able to connect to multiple Wi-Fi spots will be pretty helpful, so will the better sleep. If you're playing anything after the Dreamcast, get an Android handheld. If you only want pixel games, then get a Linux-based handheld, or an XU20 V32 if you want similar power but with better sleep. Hope this made your choice easier. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the supporters like AstroPixie YT, Linky, Willy Pete, and Dragon Fanatic. I'll see you all later. I'm going to keep saying I'm going to draw a new model and then just not do it. Bye.